Tributes have been pouring in about the monumental loss of a true American icon, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's hard to put it into perspective just how much she meant to the country, but I think we can probably pare it down and talk about what she meant to us. So, Joy, what are some of your reflections of RGB?
You know, there aren't a lot of people who've been on The View in 23 years that I've been that impressed with. I mean, I'm pretty blasé about most people. Maybe the Obamas, maybe definitely Elijah Cummings, Jimmy Carter, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was not on The View, but I had the pleasure of going into her chambers in 2009. And I have a picture to show you to prove it. But she was just remarkable. She spoke for an hour. The reason I was there is because one of my friends who came with us had gone to law school with her. And she spoke to us for a solid hour of all of the cases that were coming up very shortly and did not sit down for 1 hour. There were 5 of us. We all were standing, dying to sit. But no one would sit until she sat, of course. And, but she wouldn't sit down. You know, she just was a remarkable, remarkable person. You know, and it reminds me, people should be reminded of the fact that before Ruth, women could not use their own names to have a credit card. That would be me back in the 60s and 70s. I couldn't get my own credit card. Imagine that. I couldn't serve on the jury before Ruth. And there are so many other things that she brought to the United States and made it a better country. So I'm so sad. And I think I actually cried. I don't cry easily.
Yeah, it was rough. What about you, Sarah?
I cried as well, Joy, and building off some of the things you said, I can't help but look at the show we're all on. We've got 5 women, all mothers, all talking about politics. This may not exist at all without Justice Ginsburg. She made it possible for people like us to have it all. You can choose to be married, you can choose to have kids, but you can also choose to have a successful career. And the thing I love most about her was she didn't just open the door or set records for herself. She plowed the door down and kept it open for everyone that came behind her. And it's also important to remember that she was a champion for not only women, but men as well. She fought to make people understand that when each of us succeeds, we all succeed. But I think the most impressionable part of her, on me personally, was her style. This was a tiny package of a woman that made sure she was heard, but not because she shouted. She won on intellect, civility, reason, persuasion, all of the good things. She didn't pound it over your head. She won with the power of her pen. And I think that's the best way to bring along change, as she said, one step at a time. And in her words, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And I can say that my life is better because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Excellent. What about you, Sunny?
Yeah, you know, that makes 3 of us then that cried, because I did too. You know, I had the pleasure of honoring her last year and reading some of the lines in her and words in her decisions. And one of the decisions that we read to her was in the Lilly Ledbetter case, and it was actually her scathing dissent that was very, very important, that led to sort of this equal pay for women. And in that dissent, she wrote, "The court does not comprehend the insidious way that women can be victims to discrimination." And at that time when she wrote it, she was the only woman sitting on the court. Can you imagine? The only woman sitting on the court, and her dissent actually led President Obama to enact the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which, you know, led to women at least getting equal pay to some extent. And so I just thought in meeting her, and as Sarah mentioned, she's this tiny, tiny woman with great style. And she's about I think she was shorter than 4'11". And what I was fond of when I met her, she had these little heels on, these little tiny heels. And she also, Joy, stood the entire time. And I couldn't imagine that she kept on standing the whole time when we were chatting. And she asked me, "What law school did you go to?" And I told her I had gone to Notre Dame. She talked about her visit to Notre Dame and knew everything about the school. So she was just so sharp and so wanted to connect with me and with people in general, I think, that I was struck by her kindness as a Supreme Court justice, that she seemed to really care about people. And that comes across in her opinions and in her work and in her legacy. So I just think we lost such a true champion of civil rights.
Right.
You know, over the weekend.
Yep.
And what about you, Megan?
Look, I was shocked when I read that she had passed. She's an American icon. She was a huge glass ceiling breaker for all women, and politics aside, I mean, the incredible things she did throughout her career and the spaces she existed in and went to when no other women have gone before is something that we should all be applauding and celebrating. On a personal note, she did a lot for discrimination, stopping discrimination for pregnant women at work. And as a pregnant woman who, you know, can understand how you can be treated differently, it's the first person that really, when she was working at the ACLU, that really made sure that you couldn't be fired simply for having a baby. I mean, these are things that we don't even really think about right now that wouldn't have happened without her. I will say, on a personal note, I did not cry when she died, but I did cry when Antonin Scalia died. And I think that their relationship is one that we should be looking to. They were ideological opposites and still at the same time were the best of friends. Antonin Scalia's son actually shared a story about him giving 24 red roses to Ruth on her birthday, and a journalist was in the room and asked him why he was doing it, and he said some things are more important than politics, and they had a beautiful relationship. They loved the law. They loved opera. They went to lunch, I believe, every Friday. And it's really a relationship that I hope that all of Americans can look to, about being politically on two separate sides and still coming together and having great love and respect for one another. And look, these are one of these people that when they leave us in American culture will be remembered forever. And it's also, this is a moment in history that there's another shift. This is a paradigm shift of an American icon passing. And I think we all mourn her great addition to American life, American culture, and certainly American law.
How about you, Whoopi?
Well, I have to say,
what did you think?
When I was, you know, I just thought, you know, well done. You know,
Yeah.
I always hate when people pass away, but I thought, my God, look at everything you did. You spent your time as an American, you spent your time as a human being, fighting for the right thing. And, you know, as they argue about what's coming next, keep in mind the things she fought for, even when you might not have understood what her thinking was. She was a big picture kind of woman. She understood past, present, and future. And that is the thing that I will love her forever for. Because she didn't just make change for people at that time. She made change in the big picture. She was a big picture kind of gal. She was 4 foot, maybe 4 foot snap, but she was huge. She was huge and towering. And for me, it's, you know, we will not see quite her like, but I think with all the women she's influenced, we will see more like her.